So I am very angry that I do not have any kind of privacy over any account that I start on any phone. So every phone I have, I don't have any kind of privacy. That is disturbing and really terrifying. And I would expect anyone who does have access to this to present this video to the appropriate authorities, because this is how I have to live. I mean, imagine looking or trying to produce or present something, and then some weirdo somewhere else tries to interfere with my personal life. State terrorism, psychopathic religious idiots. By actually, not even. Leave me alone, psychopaths. You're ugly. Trash. How much more can I say? What's it like to not have rights? Maybe if I just a public reading of legal terms, Barron's Dictionary of Legal Terms, why you guys should all go to prison and why this country has failed me miserably. I really, how many phones do I have to buy, Christopher Ray? How many phones do I have to buy, sir? Because this is really starting to agitate me. I'm just going to read over these terms and why the authorities of the land have failed miserably. Now you get to see me on camera, because I don't know why you need to see me on camera for you to do your job, but here I am on camera. I'm very disappointed in law enforcement agencies for allowing people to spy and to interfere. So this is the after effect of stalking and harassment. So there's nothing a person can do. If an individual is abducted digitally, what are they supposed to do after making complaints to the authorities? So if you go down to a police station and say someone's breaking into my phone, they can only do an investigation. If you call the FBI and say someone's breaking into my phone, that's all you can do is make the complaint. But then if you buy another phone and the same people you complain to the authorities about breaking into your digital devices, they still don't do anything. And then how are we supposed to live? How's an American supposed to live? So I'm thinking maybe if I make this video, it'll help them understand how it feels to be tracked, traced, and really harassed every day. You getting this, boys? Idiots? So today is going to be another class for the FBI and law enforcement agencies on how to protect American civilians from people hacking into devices. Because a person who cannot find privacy or safety from harassment really only contemplates suicide or doing something illegal. So to have a positive reinforcement in this space is only a certain amount of things a human being can do to try to feel better about these positions, about these spaces. And I mean, if you think about the financial state of a person, what else can a person do outside of reaching out to law enforcement and really just praying for the best? So again, I see law enforcement as being failures. I meditate, conversate on these things, but maybe they'll get the point if I have an open forum of discussion. What do the American people think if all of your devices are hacked into? What? So the first legal term that we'll discuss today is abduction. So abduction is the criminal or wrongful act of forcibly taking away another person through fraud, persuasion, or violence. Compare kidnapping. So again, the criminal or wrongful act of forcibly taking away another person through fraud, persuasion, or violence. So if you take a person's digital devices, all of them, regularly, even when they change devices or purchase a new device, and then the same people hack onto that device, and the person is in a state of poverty, what do you think the American citizen is going to do? This is digital abduction, and failure on behalf of law enforcement in the United States of America? Yes, no, maybe, or prefer not to answer. The next definition. So we have a lot of people lying nowadays, and when people abuse someone, or when someone has to deal with the gross negligence of a entire institution, it's likely they would accuse the person of falsifying or imagining things occurring. So this is where we find the abuse defense, claim which attempts to justify a person's improper action based upon that person's history of victimization. So how many times have I contacted law enforcement about something that has occurred? So if it has occurred, then if I contact them, it's justified. Something happens that's illegal, that hurts my person, so I reach out to law enforcement. Or I completely imagine everything, and then I reach out to law enforcement just to reach out to law enforcement. It's only one or two things. And if someone has a history of asking or requesting assistance, so again, there's the reality of something actually occurring and the complaint is valid. And the only way to validate the complaint is to have someone with integrity respond in a way that would defend the accusation. So if I have a claim and the only way that my claim can be taken seriously or even proven is someone that has to look into this situation to see, well, did it happen or did it not happen? And if someone is to say it didn't happen, they're making me a liar, or they're trying to somehow discredit me. So if the experience is really a linear experience of seeing data tampering and literally things being edited on a phone, I've made this complaint many times that I have a brand new iPhone 11. Someone takes a video out of my gallery, edits it, and puts it back into. So once again, if I have an iPhone 11 and someone can take a video out of my gallery that I shot in less than 24 hours. So 24 hours, less than 24 hours after I shoot a video, someone takes the video off of my phone, edits it, and uploads it back onto my phone. Now, I mean, if that is somehow my imagination, then I would really, I mean, it's obvious. And this phone has never been on Wi-Fi. And now it's stuck in SOS mode. And after 3 months after purchasing it, I mean, there's definitely cyber terrorism and hacking on a high level that I cannot take care of myself without the assistance of the authorities. So my claim is that they're responsible for allowing me to go through what I'm going through and bringing me to a state of distress to the point where. So how would that make anybody feel? If you have less than $200 and you have a phone that you purchased to get away from people breaking into your phone. So I have an iPhone 11 that is worth $500 plus the case and screen protector, bringing the cost to $600. And I have less than $200 in my account, and I only purchased this phone to get away from people hacking into it. And then after I purchase it, they break into it, edit the data, edit the video, and then upload it back onto my phone. Now, how much stress is that? And how could law enforcement not find the people who do these things? And how long is a citizen supposed to wait for assistance? And these are the questions I'm asking. I meditate, conversate. So I believe that there is state terrorism happening to my person, and there's really no way. There's no way to really, as a civilian. I mean, I've seen drones. There's been so many things happening in my neighborhood that is disturbing to me. And I really do believe it's a cult or some type of strange, just a bizarre reality of things occurring to my person and to all my devices. But I mean, there's no way for me to act outside of what I'm doing. And I don't know what to do to receive some type of assistance. I mean, those two options are like the only things I see. But it's like it's just a difficult time to be an American. It's a difficult time to survive in these troubled times. So who and what group of people are being accessories to this cyber terrorism and this harassment? So what is an accessory? An accessory is a person who aids or contributes to a crime as a subordinate. An accessory performs acts that aid others in committing a crime or in avoiding apprehension. In some jurisdictions, an accessory is called an aider and abettor. See also accomplice or conspirator. So, I mean, who is the ringleader of people who harass me, and what is the purpose? Why am I unable to secure assistance from the law enforcement agencies? How much do I have? Why do I have to keep crying out? Why do I have to keep calling? Why do you accuse my person as if all I do is talk into my phone, as if I can't talk to you directly? Like, what is an... So we have accessory after the fact. A person who harbors or assists a criminal knowing that the criminal has committed a felony or is sought in connection with a crime. Accessory after the fact. So who is assisting terrorists? I mean, it's been going on for years. So there has to be someone helping and being an accessory to cyber terrorists who are trying to take or just trying to really influence my life for whatever reason. Accessory before the fact. A person who incites, counsels, or orders another to commit a crime, but who is not present when it is committed. So, America, so law enforcement agencies, what is occurring, and how come you can't secure any kind of safety for an honest, loyal American citizen? I think this is really what hurts law enforcement agencies the most, is that there are actionable torts that are undeniable, but somehow escape them and their ability to perform or to protect an innocent civilian. So again, actionable torts. An actionable tort, the existence of facts sufficient for legal filing requirements for a legitimate lawsuit by one injured. See cause of action. Actionable tort, the existence of facts sufficient for legal filing requirements. Evidence. So if there are facts that exist that are sufficient for legal filing requirements for a legitimate lawsuit, and the Attorney General or any director or any law enforcement entity that does not act in accordance to the laws of the Constitution leaves my person in a state of duress for not assisting or helping or doing anything to protect me from people who are taking advantage of my possessions. And it's just a fact. So what am I supposed to do besides keep a digital diary? Or what am I supposed to do besides exercise, or all the things in which I have discussed in my meditation conversations? So it's like, how could law enforcement not see themselves as being guilty? How could you not see yourself as being guilty? I mean, it's just, I don't get how anyone could. So in my mind, gross negligence presents a reality of aiding and abetting. So if there is a crime occurring and law enforcement is unable to secure someone's possessions based on their skill set, based on their training, based on what they're supposed to do, based on their responsibilities, it places them as an aider and abettor. To knowingly encourage or assist another, or really, maybe it's just gross negligence. Gross negligence presents the same reality as aiding and abetting. Even unknowingly encouraging or assisting another in the commission or attempted commission of a crime. Accomplice, conspirator. If a police officer looks the other way, it gives an advantage to someone else to take advantage of someone else. So as an American citizen, if you're being affected by criminal activity and law enforcement doesn't help. It's almost as if they are aiding and abetting the people that are hurting. Aggravated felony. A felony is a serious crime, usually punishable by more than 1 year in prison, as compared to a misdemeanor, which is a lesser offense. For immigration purposes, the term aggravated felony includes but is not limited to crimes of violence, treason, drug and weapon offenses, theft and fraud, prostitution and child pornography, racketeering, bribery, and perjury, and bail jumping. It is a ground for deportability, a C, deportation. An offense not considered aggravated under state law may still be considered aggravated under federal law. Aggravated a felony. So is a racketing or is what is happening to my person considered to be an aggravated felony? I would say yes. And yet the absence of law enforcement allows these things to continue to. The next term, again, this is Barron's Dictionary of Legal Terms, definitions and explanations for non-lawyers. So when you're in a bind or you're being taken advantage of by random psychopaths or sociopaths or whoever, it's best to read up on terms. I'm not a lawyer, but it makes me feel better to be able to at least hold the authorities accountable for terms in which they should understand by being in the positions of responsibility. So again, allegation. In a pleading, an assertion of fact, a statement of the issue that the contributing party expects to prove. So if there's an honest technician, an honest person who works with phones and computers and understands what has happened to all my devices, they would really provide what is that the contributions, really, everything that would prove the fact that I have been harassed digitally without. And again, a person who is being harassed digitally needs someone with integrity and character to prove it, and to hold the law enforcement agencies accountable for not assisting an American citizen who's unable to remove himself from that space. That is my claim. That is my assertion. I believe it's the American government's fault to allow someone to be digitally terrorized over a long period of time without assisting them. Yes, no, maybe, or prefer not to answer. So we have cyber law, an evolving area of law that deals with communications technology involving e-commerce, copyright, First Amendment issues such as privacy and speech, and governmental regulations. Cyber law. Again, now we have cyber squatting, cyber piracy, the illegal practice of registering a domain site such as a company name with the intention of profiting by selling that domain name to the company to which it rightfully belongs. Federal law prohibits such practices under the Anti-Cyber Squatting Consumer Protection Act. See also Digital Millennium Copyright Act. Cyber stalking. Cyber stalking are actions by a user of a computer that harass, monitors, or threatens another person and cause that person to be annoyed or alarmed by the user's conduct. See stalking. So if someone takes a cell phone or takes any kind of digital device and interacts with it, changes it, and interferes with it, it's called stalking and cyber stalking, which is punishable by law enforcement. And the only way to prove it is if you actually do your job. And if you don't do your job and someone suffers because you don't do your job, then where does that leave the innocent American civilian? So we have stalking, persistent, distressing, or threatening behavior consisting of at least two elements. The actor must repeatedly follow the victim and must engage in conduct that annoys or alarms the victim and serves no legitimate purpose. Constitutionally protected activities such as picketing are not intended to be covered by such statutes. Compare the charge of harassment which is generally considered less serious than stalking. But moving from device to device and actually camping in one's own dwelling space really would consist of stalking and harassment. And how this escapes the reality of law enforcement is beyond me. This term really is good for abuse retort, but hallucination, a state of mind whereby a person senses something that in reality does not exist. A perception of an object having no reality. Any of the senses may be involved, although sight or hearing are most commonly affected. The state of hallucination most often results from a mental illness or from ingesting drugs designed to create these perceptions. Now, cyber terrorism is not a hallucination. It can be proven factually by someone that actually does their job. Allowing cyber terrorism to occur over a long period of time to an innocent civilian's life is a violation of human rights. Rights inherent to all human beings on an equal and non-discriminatory basis. They include but are not limited to the right to life and liberty, freedom of expression and equality before the law, and economic, social, and cultural rights, including the right to participate in culture, the right to be treated with respect and dignity, the right to food, work, education, among other things. All of these rights are without distinction as to race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. Recognition of the inherent dignity of the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family is the foundation. Recognition of the inherent dignity of the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family is a foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1948. So, not assisting an innocent American civilian really places a government in a position where it denied human rights to my person. Human rights violations. Human rights violations. Criminal law violations relating to genocide, torture, war crimes, the use of recruitment of child soldiers, as well as sexual abuse, political, racial, or religious persecution, and other inhumane acts which are part of a widespread or systematic practice of atrocities. Victims are persons who individually or collectively suffered harm, including physical or mental injury, emotional suffering, economic loss, or substantial impairment of their fundamental rights through acts or omissions that constitute violations of human rights laws or violations of international humanitarian laws. Yes, no, maybe, or prefer not to answer. In this day and age, it is unacceptable for law enforcement not to be able to understand what is occurring in this nation or really anywhere. It's like there's too much information, there's too much technology, there's too much that we have as a means to be able to find grounds to accuse someone and then not helping the victim of crime. It's like, how can you not?
Yo, your water cup.
Where is your excuse? And I'm constantly looking, I'm constantly praying, I'm constantly searching my mind to find an excuse for why the country that I love doesn't have a law enforcement agent or agency or officer that can really look and see what the problem is. How could you not see the effects of really digital harassment over long periods of time? So let's try this again. Judicial notice. The court's recognition of the facts that can be confirmed by consulting sources of unquestioned accuracy, thus removing the burden of producing evidence to prove these facts. A court can admit facts that are common knowledge to an average, well-informed citizen. Negligence, a failure to exercise a degree of care that a person of ordinary prudence, a reasonable man, would exercise under the same circumstances. The term refers to conduct that falls below the standard established by law for the protection of others against unreasonable risk or harm. Now, I really believe that law enforcement is guilty of gross negligence, which is an intentional or willful failure to perform a clear duty, recklessly disregarding the consequences of injury to person or property that attend such failure. Intentional or willful failure to perform a clear duty, recklessly disregarding the consequences of injury to person or property that attends such failure. I can't see any other way to see it. I mean, when you place a person in a space where it's either suicide or further harassment, suicide or further torture, suicide or further injury, I mean, it's the only option that you gave me. It's the only option. If that's the only option you have, that is gross negligence on the highest levels. It seems to be intentional or willful failure to perform a clear duty, which is to protect an innocent, honest, loyal American citizen from suffering harm to those that would really insert themselves in my life, in the American's life. And that's just the space. Gross negligence. Let's try this again. Wanton negligence. An intentional act of an unreasonable character in disregard of a risk known or so obvious that it must have been known and so great as to make it highly probable that harm would follow. That act is usually accompanied by a conscious indifference to the consequences, amounting almost to willingness that they shall follow. The term wanton is used synonymously with willful and reckless. The result is that wanton, willful, or reckless conduct tends to take on the aspect of highly unreasonable conduct or an extreme departure from ordinary care in a situation where a high degree of danger is apparent. Wanton negligence. Racketeering, originally an organized conspiracy to commit extortion. Today, punishable offenses created by Congress aimed at eradicating organized crime by providing for enhanced sanctions and new remedies to be used in dealing with illegal activities of persons involved in organized crime. Intellectual property. Slander, to engage in defamation orally, spoken words that tend to damage another's reputation. If defamatory meaning is apparent on the face of the statement, it is said to be slanderous per se. If the defamatory meaning is not self-evident, but arises only from extrinsic facts, the statement is slanderous per qua. Slander. Now, is truth slander or opinion? If the law doesn't act in accordance to the law and someone complains about the inaction of law enforcement, is it slander to speak of a prestigious institution? Larceny. The felonious taking and carrying away of the personal property of another without his or her consent by a person not entitled to possession, with intent to deprive the owner of the property and to convert it to the use of the taker or another person other than the owner. Larceny is sometimes classified as either grand larceny or petty larceny, according to the value of the property taken or the method employed. Compare burglary, embezzlement, robbery. Again, larceny, the felonious taking and carrying away of personal property of another without his or her consent, which is a really intellectual property is personal property, and taking intellectual property for whatever reason is punishable by law. Coercion, any form of compulsion or constraint that compels or induces a person to act otherwise than freely. It may be physical force, but is more often used to describe any pressure that is brought to bear on another's free will. In testamentary law, if undue influence is exerted upon the testator, the coercion will vitiate the effect of the instrument. In criminal law, improper conduct that coerces the defendant into making incriminatory statement will void the confession. See criminal coercion or duress. So again, any form of compulsion or constraint that compels or induces a person to act otherwise than freely. So under the reality of cyber stalking and terrorism on device after device after device after device, what do you think happens? Again, if a person purchases a cell phone, and then another cell phone, and then another cell phone, and then another cell phone, if someone breaks into their television or gaming consoles or even laptops after a long period of time, what do you think happens to that American citizen? Or what do you think happens to that individual? What happens to the mind state? What happens to the emotions? What can a person do besides make complaints? What can a person do besides react to the reality of coercion or violence or harassment? What can a person do? Now, this is not a one-word answer, but would you say that constant harassment after reaching out to law enforcement and changing device after device, do you think that is a version of coercion? Yes, no, maybe. And finally, terrorism. The use, maybe. And finally, terrorism. The use or maybe. Every day. You getting this, boys? Idiot positions about these spaces. And I mean, if you think about the financial state of a person, what else can a person do outside of reaching out to law enforcement and really just praying for the best? So again, I see law enforcement as being failures. I meditate calmly.